Today we're reviewing quite an unfortunate movie. We're looking at Swamp Thing from 1982. It was so tough for us to even try to string like what the basic plot was together.
A lot of the times I don't even know what's happening on screen.
No, dude, like the budget for this movie was like $13. The movie follows Dr. Alec Holland and this other character named Cable, a government agent who is appointed to oversee Dr. Alec Holland's research in the titular swamp. And it follows this scientist as he makes this like serum that combines plant and animal DNA. He was like, oh, what if plants had like the aggressive tendencies for survival as like animals do? When they use the ooze, like if you drop the ooze on like their wooden table, like plants start to grow from it, and you're like, all right, that's this movie, I guess.
Yeah, and through some unfortunate events, he ends up getting the actual, we're gonna call it
the ooze. It's 100% the ooze, dude.
spilled on him. Thus transforming him into Swamp Thing.
Yay!
A large part of the inciting incident of this movie comes from when these terrorists that are out in the swamp, in the jungle, they raid the lab, and it's kind of just all over the place. You have Cable becoming an action movie star out of nowhere.
Which I honestly enjoyed, though, because the rest of the movie was like so boring up until that point.
And after there's this whole malfunction and Alec gets the ooze poured on him, the rest of the movie just becomes what we called a running simulator.
Oh my god.
Because the rest of the plot is strictly just about these terrorists tracking down Cable, who has the last of these notes ready to complete the formula for the ooze that they're after.
Krabby Patty formula.
The Krabby Patty secret formula. After that point is just her running away from the terrorists, hiding away from the terrorists. Swamp Thing comes in and saves her from the terrorists, and then she starts running from the terrorists.
Yeah, but sometimes she's swimming from the terrorists, so it's more interesting.
It's true. They switch it up sometimes. It's true. It has to go noted, through all this running, she meets one of the freaking funniest, dorkiest characters I've ever seen.
This kid, dude.
His name is Jude. He's this random kid that just is living out in the swamp. And she comes across him, and she's like, oh my god, do you have a payphone? He has a payphone out in this little shack he's living in.
Doesn't work, though.
It doesn't work. And he ends up just coming along for the ride at the randomest parts of the movies. He pops up, and every time he does, I have to let out, like, a freaking laugh.
Uh-huh. Here comes trouble.
Gotta roll laugh.
But he's just so funny.
Well, because, like, it's so weird, because he's, like, this little kid that has no supervision. I think maybe they mentioned that, like, his parents are like out of the picture.
Yeah.
But he's like okay. Like he's fine. He knows his way around the swamp. He's living in this like abandoned like convenience store. And every time he randomly shows up, I'm like, is this guy like a fifth dimensional like all-powerful being who's just like showing up like spying like from Mr. Mix's look, you know? Like I don't know.
Now he shows up, contributes nothing.
Yeah.
And then disappears.
Yeah.
And you know, you might be wondering, this is a Swamp Thing movie. Why haven't we talked about Swamp Thing yet?
Probably because he's in like 5 minutes of the movie.
He's in like 5 minutes, and every second that he is, I like want my eyes searching to take it out of my head.
It's brutal.
It's like the Batman 89 cowl got like melted onto center. Like he walks around like this. And they've just spray painted it green. And every time Swamp Thing shows up and saves Cable, he just lets out these weird fucking noises like... Every time he shows up on screen and he gives up... It feels like someone put your brain in a microwave and then put it back in your head for another running scene.
Dude. Why did you guys choose this character to make a movie about?
That's what, honestly, I was going to mention that too. Like, okay, this is the 80s.
Yeah.
We're getting Superman movies that are kicking ass at this point.
Mm-hmm.
DC, you're supposed to, like, build momentum. Why would you go from Superman to Swamp Thing?
Swamp Thing? I like Swamp Thing. He's, like, a really cool, deep in, like, occult horror character.
Yeah.
That doesn't come across ever in this movie.
Let's mention the one scene that we like.
Oh, yeah.
It's one scene that does kind of capture what Swamp Thing is about in the
Yes.
comics.
Yes.
The sequence plays out like this. He's just saved Cable from another marathon that she's run, the terrorists, and they're recovering by the edge of the swamp.
Yeah.
And in the fight scene prior, Swamp Thing got his arm cut off with a machete, and so he's just relaxing, gathering up his energy. The scene plays out very peacefully, and it finally feels like, for the first time in the movie, the plot actually feels grounded.
Yeah, and they're like letting a scene breathe.
Yeah, like the characters are actually talking, and it's not just Swamp Thing making like gargled screams when Cable runs away through like knee-high water. That's the only scene I liked in the entire movie.
The only scene, and I think it's when she actually finds out that this creature that's been like running after her this whole time is Dr. Alec Holland, who she kind of was like starting to flirt around with having a romance with, and it's like gut-wrenching, dude. It's really sad.
Yeah, it is.
And like Swamp Thing is like, he's sad and she's crying, and you're like, fuck, man, this stupid rubber face is like making me feel something. And then that's it though.
If they had way more of that energy throughout the movie, I think it actually would have hit a lot harder, and I'm positive we would feel completely different about it, because in that moment we both at the same time said,
That was a good scene.
this is a good scene.
100%.
And I think we both had to actually say it out loud.
Yeah.
Because it was the first objectively good thing in the movie.
Yes, but it's like a minute or two long.
Yeah.
And it's cut short, and you're back to like goofy ass mercenaries like driving like boats in a swamp. We should probably talk about the bad guy in the movie. He's like loosely based on one of Swamp Thing's main enemies from the comics, named Anton Arcane. He's like this rich dude in the movie who like pays for all these mercenaries, and he wants like Dr. Alec Holland's research.
And his motivation is just to sell it at first, but once he sees what it can actually do when it's combined with humans, he realizes like, oh my god, Swamp Thing is tanking machetes to the arm and tanking bullets from all these mercenaries I hired. Like this is the new super soldier serum.
The villain, as like arrogant as he is, he's like, well, I mean, I'm just like a genius, so if I take the serum, I'll be more of a genius. And you're like, okay, but obviously he's evil, so he becomes like this.
He becomes a stupid like mole rat bitch.
He looks like Ganon from The Legend of Zelda.
Yeah, and it kind of ticks me off too, because the transformation scene when he's turning into this, like you said, Ganon character, I kind of like the transformation scene, and it's super like body horror.
Yeah.
It's like creepy, it's dark, his skin is bubbling, he's like screaming in pain.
Yeah, he's like, his skin is sloughing off, there's like pus and stuff, but then he becomes like Bowser.
And then he just takes like a freaking halberd sword into battle with it.
It's like a shitty prop sword with like a blunt end, and you're
It
like,
looks terrible.
he's just like,
Yeah.
like trying to like,
That's what it is. It's just two people in terrible rubber suits
yeah,
fighting in a swamp, and badly.
really, really, really badly.
Yeah. Swamp Thing ends up being victorious.
He says goodbye to Cable, and she's like, will I see you again? And he's like, I'll always be in the swamp or whatever. And you're like, fuck, I never want to see either of you ever again.
The only reason why Swamp Thing to begin with is already on this list is because we set out on a mission.
Yes.
We set out dedicated that we're going to review and rank every single superhero movie theatrically released.
Yes.
And so this one was one, unfortunately, that we had to get through.
I'm going to make a statement that I might have to rescind when, like, at some point later in this series. I don't think we're going to have as hard a time watching any other superhero movie as we did with this one, bro.
Yeah, it was rough.
Terrible.
If you guys have seen this movie, please let us know your thoughts. We gotta know if we're the only ones that are seeing this for what we saw it as. If you like this video, give it a like. Please subscribe and stay tuned for our next few episodes. We're gonna be reviewing Superman 3. And we are the Comic Lads, and we'll see you on the next one.
Jude.